shape you are in right now. You can stay there for a few breaths. And find your natural breath cadence. So whatever the rhythm of your natural breathing is, you're going to tune back into that. And notice your breathing in any and all ways that you notice it. If you have no idea what that means, I try not to lead you into certain thoughts, but if that just drew a complete blank, what I mean by that is, do you feel your breath in your rib cage? Do you feel it in your abdominal stretch? Do you feel it? Do you hear your breathing? Do you feel the sensation of air coming in and out of your nose? Do you feel it in a more subtle body way? So those are all things you can continue to explore as we come into shapes in Yin. For today's practice, I'm going to lead postures, and then I am going to show the sort of inverted variation or the wall variation of every posture. And the reason you would do certain things on the wall usually is if you have a sensitive back or a sensitive neck, so a sensitive spine, whether that's your sacrum or your cervical spine. So for example, we are going to start out in a straddle. So a straddle is a great midline meridian stretch, but it involves rounding the spine forward and letting your head hang. So my dear LH, who's not on right now, but maybe she'll watch it later, you wouldn't do it this way, but you could do it against the wall. So anybody can do any of these, the sort of seated way or the supine variation. So the supine variation is just lying down, legs up against the wall, coming into the straddle. So I'm getting the same midline meridian work. I'm not getting the spinal stretch, for better or worse, depending on whether you want that or not. So you're going to come into your straddle. If you're on your back with your legs on the wall, you just let your feet sort of slide down the wall as much as they can. Yeah, please find, and if you guys want this wall, I can move. I can come off the wall. But there's, let me just move this light off because it's crystals all over the place. So you can be on the wall. If you're seated, hopefully you are supporting your head in some way. So if you can, if you have a long spine and a lot of forward fold, your forehead might be on the ground or on your hands, or you could put a block under your head. And as you come into the shape, whatever shape it is that you want to come into, you'll try to relax your muscles as much as you can. And just check in to see if we have a waiting room. We're not supposed to. You're relaxing your muscles. And for today's practice, I would invite you to use your breathing as your focal point. So sometimes I suggest that you focus on the area of greatest sensation in the posture, and you can certainly do that if you prefer that as a practice. I do like the discipline, though, of even in this gentle practice, taking the opportunity to commit to one focal point. It really enhances the meditative value of the practice, kind of trains us. So you find your point of focus, your musculature, your breathing, something else if you prefer something else, and then you stay. There's going to be large gaps of silence. You've been in this shape for about a minute, so this is a good point for your physical body to check in and see if you could go a little deeper. So if you're on the wall, if you can take your heels a little farther away from each other. If you're seated, maybe you can take your head a little lower or your heels a little farther away from each other. We will often hear our Yin teachers say that Yin is not a relaxation class. It's not supposed to be a restorative practice. So I believe that's true and false. It is a restorative practice. It restores us in many ways. It relaxes us in many ways. But that doesn't mean it's without sensation. So what makes it different from what's called a restorative practice is we should feel a little pull in our body. We're doing this to allow our connective tissue to stretch a little more. So when you lose that sensation of stretch, see if you can do something to bring a positive, useful sensation back into your body. Stay where you are. Take a couple more deep breaths. And then before you move, before you start to come out of the posture, just notice how you feel. Take a couple breaths. And then think about how to best come out of the shape. So come out slowly, paying attention to anything that's on big stretch right now. And then before we move into another shape, you'll find some comfortable place to sit and just take a pause. Maybe with eyes closed, scan your body. And if you're taking these postures on your back, if you're lying down with your legs on the wall, you can stay on your back for several in a row, at least a few more. Okay. And now you're going to lie down. So actually there's no back, I misspoke. There's no back version of this. You're going to lie down on your back and bring just one knee in and hold on to that knee. Your head is down. So the exception to just stay, or the only variation would be if you slide your right leg over to the right and slide your torso over to the right. So it's sort of a combination of Banasana, where you're like in that banana shape, and knee to chest. So I've got my right knee in towards my chest, and then I'm bending my spine and my left leg around my right hip. And then I go back to either focusing on my breathing. I'm not trying to shift it, I'm just noticing it as it occurs naturally. Or observing that place of sensation, which is probably somewhere in the left hip complex. If you're in a side bend, this is a shorter posture. So if you're in a side bend, you're going to come out of it. Let your right foot go down to the ground. Extend your right leg out. Bring your left leg in. Left knee bends. You hug your left shin and you side bend to the left. Torso and leg wrapping around the left hip. Torso and right leg bending to the left. If you're in a side bend, come out of the side bend. Lower your left foot to the ground and slide your left leg out. And you don't have to, there's no reason to move like front and back on your mat. You could just roll over onto your stomach and we're gonna come into Sphinx. Just gonna roll over and come into Sphinx pose. In Sphinx pose, you're probably on your forearms. You're not trying to lift your torso up, you're letting it fall and you're letting your head hang. If that hang of your head is too much, you could put a block under your forehead. And one of the challenges in Yin is to not unconsciously tense up the back body. So maybe wiggle your legs a little to make sure your hamstrings, your glutes, and your back muscles are really not doing the work here. You want to feel really heavy on the mat. Anterior hip flexors are stretching. Head is heavy, face is relaxed. If you feel like your back can take a little more stress, you can start to press into your hands. Let your torso lift a little higher, but try to keep your head hanging. And you can definitely go back and forth between this, which is Seal, and this, which is Sphinx. For the last few rounds of breath in this shape, see if you can go back to that slower, deeper breath. So maybe 2 counts up from your natural breath rate. And anytime between now and 5 breaths from now, you can walk your arms out to the sides and lie down. Lie on your belly. Notice what you felt or feel in Sphinx or after Sphinx. Then you're going to grab a block if you have one, roll back onto your back, and we're going to come into a supported bridge, which might end up looking a lot like Sphinx upside down. So you'll come into bridge setup, just lift your hips high enough to get a block under your hips, or you could have a bolster or a folded blanket under your hips. And you'll take a few breaths here with knees knocked in. So we're going to start, this is variation 1, feet on the ground, knees still bent, block or bolster under your hips. And it should be far enough away from your sacrum, like the very end of your sacrum, so you feel your pelvis is tilting back towards you, that you're not arching your back, that it's actually causing you to round your back. And then if you feel good right here with your both knees bent, you could stay here. If you're willing to experiment with a little deeper hip flexor stretch, let's start with the right leg. So you can start reaching out your right leg and your toes will flop out and you'll feel some sensation on the top of your right leg. So you could try that with each leg and see if you feel like one of those is a more useful shape. Or you could try both legs and see how that is. So once both legs go out, you'll need to make sure that block is really at the end of your sacrum. Otherwise, it'll just put you in a big back bend. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for hip flexor extension. And then your arms can rest to the side, palms up. Awareness on your breathing or on that location of greatest sensation. So because this posture has like sort of a lot of built-in variations in terms of whether you extend one leg or both, we can stay here a little longer because you can go deeper into it or you can come out of it a little bit. Your legs are extended. Bend them one at a time. Slowly come back to supported bridge with knees bent. Without your hips coming off the block, let your knees go side to side a little bit. And then pausing at center, lift your hips just enough to take the block away. Put your hips back on the ground and let your knees knock in towards each other. Hands at your sides or hands on your belly. Observe your breathing. Experience your body breathing. All right. We're now going to do 2 postures that can be done seated or on the wall. And those are square pose and shoelace. So if you want to do it on the wall, you're going to turn around, put your legs up on the wall, and come into square pose, which is shin over shin on the wall. If you're doing it seated, you're just going to sit up and either stack shins or cross legs.
Shoelace or?
So the first one is square pose, which is shin over shin or leg in front of leg. Or you could do it on the wall. You can stay seated up, sitting up. Okay, great. You could lean your spine against a wall, or you could start to lean forward. And again, I won't say much for the next 3 minutes. You'll have time to observe your breathing or that point of sensation that is greatest in your body. Make sure your arms are heavy and your jaw and face are relaxed. As with every posture, if you think you can go a little farther, you can move any props, go in a little further. Keeping the shape you're in, start to extend your breath. So see if you can go back to that deeper breath rate. One more full round of breath at that longer breath rate. And then slowly start to walk yourself out of the shape, go into a less stressful shape, and just sit for a couple breaths, take a pause. Remember what leg was on top. So I think that everybody had their right leg, everyone in the room had their right leg on top. Okay, we're gonna transition to shoelace. So same leg on top. So if your right leg is on top for square pose, your right leg is on top for shoelace. You've got one knee over the other, feet out to the side. And if you're doing this on your back, you can do this exact same thing supine with your legs on the wall. So if you want to add one more thing to shoelace, if your right leg is on top, you can do arms. So right arm would go up, left arm would go back. If you're folding forward, see if you can find a way to support your head. Remember to pay attention to the sensation in your body and make sure that there is sensation. And if you lose it, you come into the posture a little deeper. Find that deeper breath count, or that longer breath count. One more breath at that deeper count. And then slowly start to sit up. Unwind your legs and take a neutral shape for a few breaths. Okay, let's move on to the other side. So square pose, left leg over right. You could do it here sitting. You could sit against a wall. And the least stressful in your back would be lying down, but your legs still do the same thing. So square pose, however you want to come into it. Arms are heavy. Torso's relaxed. So if you're on your back, your torso's relaxed and you're not moving. If you're sitting up, your torso's relaxed and that's taking you into a forward fold. Especially if you're sitting, make sure your shoulders are relaxed, your arms are heavy. Wherever you are, make sure your face is relaxed, your jaw is relaxed. Okay, 5 rounds of breath at that longer count. And then slowly coming out of the posture just enough that you can take a pause. So we're going to come into shoelace next, but maybe you come into some in-between shape. And then returning to shoelace, left leg over right. You're still in shoelace. Your posture doesn't change. You're going back into your deeper breath. So deeper, a little longer. And then slowly start to transition from shoelace to some intermediate shape. It can just be legs crossed, legs out in front of you. I'm completely reversing it by doing the straddle, so really up to you. And now everyone is going to use the wall, except for me, because if I turn to use the wall, I don't think Zoom catches my voice. So you're going to sit as close as you can to the wall. Really hip, whole side body up against the wall, and then turn around, staying as close to the wall as you can, taking your legs straight up the wall. Maybe I will do this. Okay. And it's going to be legs straight up the wall, or like like happy baby against the wall, but your feet stay on the wall. So either legs straight up, if you want a little more, you'll take the soles of your feet against the wall. And you can take your feet even wider, Barb. I love your golfer hand. That's fantastic. I've got the reverse. I only have tan feet. All right, so knees wide, feet on the wall, or legs straight up the wall. I mean, we started with a straddle. You could do a straddle again too, but something with your spine flat, legs on the wall. And then face relaxes, jaw relaxes, natural breath rate picks up. So notice your breath. Count your breath. Count your inhale, count your exhale. This is just breath as it occurs naturally. Is it the same as it was at the beginning of the practice? And whether it is or whether it's not, starting with this breath count, extend your breath just a count of one. So every inhale is one more count, every exhale is one more count. And now extending your breathing one more count. So you're 2 up from baseline. And now releasing your extended breathing, just go back to natural breath rate. And if you have your legs up the wall, you can stay there. You could take this for 2 more minutes as Shavasana, or you can slowly start to come off the wall and extend your legs out long. But at this point, you are no longer manipulating your breathing. And if you were working with a mental focus before, you're letting go of that as well. If that's where your attention happens to stay, that's fine, but you're not forcing it. Stay wherever you are. Try not to move your body yet, but become aware of where you are. Become aware of your physical body in space. Without moving, notice the parts of you that are touching the wall, the floor, your mat. Notice the spaces that probably aren't, like your Achilles, the backs of your knees, the back of your neck, your wrists. And now bring a little bit of movement into your body. So now you're not only aware of your location in space, you're aware of your sensation in space. If you're on the wall, start to roll off the wall. If you're lying down, start to sit up, and we will all meet seated. You can move your head a little. Any part of you that feels like it needs to move, yeah. And then we'll take a breath in together. Let's reach arms high, stretch out your side bodies. Exhale, bring hands to heart center or to your lap. Thank you for sharing this practice with me. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for being here virtually. Namaste. Namaste. Turn this off if I can.
Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you.